the pre-announcement that we saw earlier this week. Just wondering if you could provide any additional commentary, color on the what you saw in the quarter beyond just kind of the top line numbers that were in the press release.
Yeah, I mean, in the first quarter, we did something like 31% more than the first quarter of 2021. So as everybody know, in the medical aesthetic category, the first quarter is the slowest one. The fourth quarter is the strongest one. So 30% more than the last quarter of 2021, we were happy. Although we had some difficulties in this quarter, partially because of the war between Russia and Ukraine, which affect the market in Russia and the market in Ukraine. Second, pandemic in Asia, as everybody know, we still have issues in China. Some cities are closed and people are not allowed to travel from city to city. So I believe we did not get our best in China in the first quarter. Other countries, Asia, like Korea and Japan, have difficulties to get people from the outside for training or to send doctors for training. So it was not the best quarter for us in these two countries. Other than that, we're very satisfied with the results. I have to say that the supply chain in the first quarter did not get better than what we experienced in the last quarter of 2021 or in 2021. We're still struggling to get all the components and everything that we need. Sometimes we need to pay more than what we usually pay. Logistic prices went up, but I mean, we did our best in order to supply every system within not more than 10 days of order. Hopefully in the next quarter, the supply chain will improve. The beginning of the second quarter, it doesn't look like, but we'll see what will happen. Other than that, the first quarter was good for us, almost $86 million, which is for the first quarter is a record for InMode, and hopefully it will continue quarter after quarter.
Okay, got it. And the revenue was obviously very strong, around 30% to your point. But if there was one thing I would criticize about it, and this is a minor criticism, it's just the gross margin was a little weak. But I assume that that's related to the comments you just made on the supply chain. Just you had some added cost in there, and that's why the gross margin was a little bit lower
yes.
than Okay.
Yes, I mean I believe that we lost something like in between 1 to 1.5% in the first quarter in the gross margin. We typically have 85%. Right now it's in between 83 to 84. The gross margin, and this is due to the fact that things are getting difficult to procure, to purchase. Sometimes we need to pay more for components, shipping costs, and other stuff. So our gross margin this quarter is less than the usual gross margin, but it's not because we lost we reduced prices or something. We did not. It's because the cost of manufacturing went up a little bit due to the supply chain difficulties.
Okay. And also due to the mix, because we had such a strong quarter, record quarter for consumables tend to be a little bit lower in gross margin. That's also part of the reason for the impact. But the positive side, it was another record quarter for consumables. Consumables doing really, really good in absolute dollar number and also as a percentage of overall sales.
Yeah, it was right. Usually on the fourth quarter, it was 11% consumable. This quarter is more than 13%.
Okay, that's good. All right, and then I want to move on and just talk about some of the macro factors. I mean, we've already mentioned it some, but just looking back over the last 2+ years during the pandemic, it seems like aesthetic procedures may have, and InMode specifically, may have actually benefited from the pandemic for whatever reason. I don't know if it's all the stimulus or people spending all this time on Zoom or whatnot, but do you believe that was the case? And do you think there was any sort of pull forward of demand either from the systems perspective or the procedural perspective where patients or people opted to get these procedures and now that pipeline's kind of been dried up a little bit? Or I mean, it doesn't look that way based on the first quarter, but
no, Mike, I think the opposite. I think the pipeline is not drying, and the way to measure it is by the numbers of consumables that we're selling. In the fourth quarter of 2021, we sold 120,000 disposable, which means 120,000 surgical procedures performed using our equipment. In the first quarter of this year, we are above 160,000, 40,000 more. So the pipeline is not drying. People are going to get more procedures in the doctor offices using minimally invasive surgical procedures. And the reason for that is, pandemic associated with hospitals and people don't want to go to the hospital. Second, we have the hand-free devices, which are doing very well. So overall, I cannot say we benefited from the corona, but the corona did not hurt us. On the other hand, the corona in certain countries are more severe than others. So, for example, losing some business in China, Korea, Japan, just less than what we expected. It was some kind of disappointment for us. But we have to wait until those countries will clear as well.
Okay, got it. And then just want to follow up on your previous comments on the supply chain. So, and just inflation. I think you said that the first quarter wasn't worse than, or maybe wasn't better than the fourth quarter, but was it worse, I guess, than the fourth quarter? Or is it basically the same as the fourth quarter in those regards?
I would say it was worse than the fourth quarter.
Okay.
Yes, it was worse than the fourth quarter. Less and less. We tried to overcome it by having more than one supplier per component. Actually, we have 3 of them, but the negotiation with the suppliers on the first quarter was tougher than what we had on the fourth quarter as far as supply, as far as delivery time, as far as prices. So I have to say that I don't think things are getting better. I don't know if this is worse than the fourth quarter, but it's not getting better for sure.
All right, got it. And then I want to ask about, you also mentioned Russia and the Ukraine. Can you just quantify your sales exposure in either of those countries?
Yeah, well, we lost all the business in Ukraine, which was about between $2 to $3 million a year. The situation there is that, the distributors we have there, we don't have a subsidiary in Ukraine, we have a distributor. He lost the business, and it will take time before it will recover. And I don't foresee that happening in 2022. And we're not looking for somebody else there because the situation in Ukraine is
obviously.
In Russia, the situation is different. They cannot transfer money. And therefore, they have orders with us. We received orders, but we delivered very partially. We do not deliver we're not going to deliver product unless we get payment. And they have difficulties because of all the sanctions and the monetary sanctions that are applied in Russia. Difficult for them to pay us for all the deliveries that they are requesting. Hopefully, they believe that in the second quarter it will be improved and it will be better to transfer money. But right now, in the first quarter, yes, we lost some business in Russia because of lack of ability for them to pay.
And how big is that business overall, Russia?
Russia is about €2 million every quarter right now. In the first quarter, it was 50% of it.
Okay. And then I want to dig in a little more on what's happening in China. So, China, there's been these shutdowns, lockdowns, whatever you want to call them. And, you called that out as well already, but I just want to see if you can provide more detail there. And what I don't know is, I've seen your reports of like Shanghai, but how widespread is this? And I guess at least relative to the cities where you're typically, selling your products.
Well, there are 4 countries in China which are closed now or partially closed: Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Shanghai, and partially Hong Kong as well, which I consider it as part of China because of the pandemic. When I said closed, for example, we used to sell doctors to train in China. We cannot do it now. Our sales team, which is based in Beijing, cannot travel to other cities. Although we're in the process of establishing a subsidiary in Guangzhou, but even if we'll open it, we're not going to hire people unless they will be able to go on the field and sell. But there was another thing that's going on in China right now. Just because of the pandemic, the CFDA, the Chinese FDA, is working much slower than it used to. We're waiting already 2.5 years after submission to get approval for 2 more platforms. As you know, and we discussed that, we're only approved on 3 platforms in China, and now we're trying to approve all the laser IPL and other products. We answered all the questions. They don't give you any date for answer, unlike the FDA, and we're still waiting. We believe it's partial because of the COVID. They're dealing right now with all the COVID and the vaccine and all the issues. So they are very much slower answering equipment manufacturer submission to the CFDA. And again, we're waiting. Hopefully it will be improved soon.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard that from multiple companies in different areas. So I guess what I'm wondering is, do you think it's really just the pandemic, or do you think that they're kind of trying to freeze out the foreign companies to some degree and make it just harder?
No, I don't think. I know China for 20 years since Syneron, and I don't think they're against foreign companies. The hospital in China are full with equipment coming from foreign companies, not from Chinese. Most of their sophisticated hospitals and clinics are basically based on the equipment that they buy from overseas. I don't think there's any any objection in China for foreign equipment. I think it's related to the pandemic. Listen, right now, in Shanghai, for example, they basically closed the city a week ago, and they tested, this is what our team telling me, they tested 20 million people overnight. So they are occupied with that. They want to achieve zero infect, which is, I think it's impossible, but this is their strategic goal.
Yeah, okay. So while this is going down, at least in those cities, I mean, you're essentially not getting any sales in those regions.
We get, but less than what we anticipate.
Okay. All right. And from a timing standpoint, I mean, that kind of happened pretty late did that occur in the second quarter or late in the first quarter?
No, it was in the middle of the first quarter. It's up until now, even now.
Okay. So it's been going on for weeks then.
Yes.
Okay. And then, can you just talk about, how many of your customers typically finance their purchase of the equipment? I mean, are you worried at all? Interest rates have risen a fair bit here and maybe going up more. I know they're still kind of low relative to other periods in the late 80s or whatever, but they have gone up. So, I mean, do you think that would affect demand at all for any of your products?
Well, right now, I would say, and Yair, correct me if I'm wrong, in the United States, 95% of our deals are financed with either loan or leasing.
Yeah, over 80 for sure, most of it. And the increase in interest rate, I think, would not change the economics of the ROI drastically. So instead of $3,000, because most of them is a 5-year lease, right? So instead of $3,000 a month, it will go up to $3,100, $3,200. It will not change drastically the purchasing decision.
Yeah, okay. So the payback period is not really going to change much at all.
So maybe one more month instead of...
We don't see it. And by the way, the interest rate on leasing did not went up yet.
Yeah. Okay. And then, just another related topic. I mean, the yield curve is inverted, and that could be a sign that we're headed for a recession at some point. How is... you've been in the aesthetics industry for a long time, Moshe. So, how does this stuff typically fare during recessions? I mean, do you think that, demand drops at all? Is it cyclical at all, or?
I tell you, it depends how deep the recession will be. It will be depression, of course. If it will be something like, 2008, 2009, yes, it will affect us. But at the end of the day, people who spend $5,000 to $10,000 on surgical procedure are not really affected by the recession. It's not very low demographic who's going to get surgical treatment, aesthetic surgical treatment in the doctor office. Maybe the low-level treatment, like, injection, Botox or stuff, people will save money and do it not every 6 months, but every 9 months. I don't think it will affect us heavily.
Okay. All right. And now I've got some more product-related questions. So, the FDA recently issued a warning to one of your competitors, this Apex Medical company, for their dermal resurfacing or skin contraction with their device. I think they're sort of viewed as a competitor to some degree with your body type, face type products. So, you didn't get anything similar so far, at least. But, how does your labeling compare to theirs? And, is this something, is there a risk that something similar could happen with InMode?
Well, I will put it this way, Mike. The reason why they received the warning letter from the FDA, it's not because of the labeling. I'm sure they have the same labeling that we do. Hemostasis, coagulation, on the fat, and the dermis, everything, in order to do tightening, etc. They have the same things, I assume. I did not check their FDA approval. I believe the reason why they got the FDA warning letter is because of safety issue. I checked this morning on the FDA website to see how many adverse effects reported to the FDA using the J Plasma, the Apex product recently, and I found that there are 70 severe adverse effect reporting. If you check their FDA site for InMode, you will see 7 from the first day we introduced the body type. Yeah. So it's totally different in the safety, I would say, safety parameters or safety features between our product and their product. And I will explain. With body type, neck type, face type, acute type, we are measuring the temperature inside and outside every 1 microsecond. And it's done automatically. And whenever the temperatures go above the setup of the protocol, the system stops immediately. So when you apply plasma, helium plasma, to the body, you cannot measure the temperature of the treatment. And that's exactly what happened to them. You don't need much. You just need to go from 44 to 47 to create a burn, degrees centigrade. And I believe that's what happened to them. Now, One of your questions on the list, I'm sure you asked whether that will affect us. I will answer that by saying the people who buy J Plasma looking for cheap product, because J Plasma platform costs between $50,000 to $70,000, on average $60,000. BodyTite is $130,000. So people who do not want to spend, or doctors who do not want to spend the right amount of money to get the right product, buy J Plasma. But right now, I don't know what will happen because the letter was published, all over. Maybe some doctors now will think twice if they want to buy unsafe equipment instead of buying InMode equipment. By the way, I can tell you that, for example, in some countries in Latin America, like in Colombia, some of the insurance company who are insuring doctors with malpractice insurance send them a letter stating that they don't have insurance using the J Plasma equipment. And I believe it will now continue in other countries as well. I have the letter. If you want, I can email it to you. We translate it to see what happened. Insurance companies are getting involved in order to prevent doctors in Colombia not to use the J Plasma equipment.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Never happened to us.
Okay. And then, if I look at your U.S. installed base, I think it's around 5,700. Is that right? And
correct.
That's of last quarter. Yeah.
That's everything. That's including minimal invasive, Morpheus, hand-free, non-invasive, hair removal. That's not just surgical.
Yeah, got it.
The surgical part of it is around 2,000.
Only 2,000. Okay.
Around
because
2,000.
This is something that, a question I've gotten from some investors is just like, hey, if they have 5,700 systems out there in the U.S. and there's 7,000, plastic surgeons, then shouldn't we be worried about, the market kind of being fully penetrated here, or mostly penetrated, saturated, I guess. But, based on what you're saying, you say that the surgical systems are truly only about 2,000 of that. So,
yes. I mean, I would say that right now, the people or the doctors who are using the surgical equipment are mainly plastic surgeon and derm surgeon, mainly for the face, AccuTite and FaceTite. They don't do body. Dermatologists don't do body. So it's not 7,500. You can count it on 20,000 altogether. Aesthetic doctors who are doing minimal invasive procedures. So we're about 10 to 12%.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. And then, so I want to move on to your Empower system that you've launched, I guess last August. Can you just give us an update? Sorry, let me step back. Can you give us an overview of just what the product is and kind of the four procedures that you can do with it before we talk about kind of how it's doing in the market?
Yeah, the Empower fully upgraded its 7 modalities.
Okay.
You have the Forma V for vaginal contraction. You have the Morpheus 8V for SUI. You have the V-Tone for pelvic floor restoration, which is EMS. You have Morpheus. You have the Aviva for labiaplasty, which is RFAL, radio frequency. You have the Tone for muscle stimulation after pregnancy, not internal, external. And you have also the Morpheus 8 regular for labia treatment. I mean, when you put all this together, doctor can do almost everything with it. Aesthetic gynecology, medical gynecology, like SUI or pelvic floor restoration. It can do minimal invasive labiaplasty. It's a very comprehensive platform. And I have to tell you that the first quarter was the first full quarter of selling it, and we're very happy with the results.
Okay.
The guidance of $20 million this year, I believe we will maintain this guidance, $20 million of Empower or Women Health this year.
Okay. All right. And then, I wanted to check in on the other, major platform that you've got coming, which is the ophthalmology product. I think it's called Envision RF. I think it's been delayed a few times, but I don't think it's because of any issues with the product. I think you're just trying to make sure that you launch it, at the right time. Don't overwhelm your sales force with too many new products. But can you just give us an update on, why it wasn't, launched, when you originally were planning, and let me know if my thought there is correct. And then you just give us an update on when you think it'll be launched.
Well, the original plan was to do it in the first quarter, but we're doing it right now in the second quarter. We're doing a soft launch now in Canada, 50 system. Excuse me. The system include the iForma for dry eye, IPL, which can be for facial rejuvenation and dry eye, Morpheus 8 for periorbital wrinkles with the prime tip, which is 12 pins, and AccuTite for upper and lower lid radio frequency operation. We're doing now the soft launch in Canada, and we will continue later on, hopefully this quarter, in the second quarter, if not in the third quarter, to the US as well.
Okay, got it. And then if I look at Empower RF and Envision RF, in the first 12 months of sales of each product, which one do you think can do more sales? I mean, ophthalmology, it seems like maybe those doctors are a little more used to doing, kind of out-of-pocket procedures and marketing their practices and things like that. But I don't know if you have an opinion on that at this point.
Well, you know how many gynecologists in the U.S.? 40,000.
Yeah.
Ophthalmologists, 15,000. So I believe the potential with Empower is larger than the potential with Envision. How much we will do in the first 12 months? Let us do one quarter and ask the question again next. We get some experience, and I'll let you know.
That's a fair answer. I wasn't necessarily looking for a number, but okay. And then let's see. Can you just talk about, the other question I get frequently from investors just around your competitive position, kind of, what's differentiated about InMode with your key technologies versus your competitors. So can you maybe just talk about, what you feel is the key, I guess it's probably RFAL, the body type, face type, and then the, Morpheus microneedling. I don't know if the hands-free stuff would fall in that category, but just talk about, why your products are better, why they're different than some of the competing things out there.
Okay. I have to begin by saying, Mike, that everything any one of our competitors can do, we can do and more. Why am I saying it? I mean, in the traditional medical aesthetic, which means laser, IPL, non-invasive RF, and all this, I believe we have portfolio which is at least as good as others. I believe it's even better because we have a very unique IPL and a very unique laser for hair removal, which protected by patent. I don't think it's the time to explain from engineering point of view, but if necessary, I can do that. And then we have another segment, which is the hand-free. In the hand-free, we have some competitors, but no one has hand-free for face and body. We have them both for body and face. And now we're coming with the second generation Evoke for face. And on the body, we came already with the second generation, which is the Transform. And then 66% of our business, which relates to surgical procedure and ablative procedures, we have no competition. I mean, we are alone. We have the technology, we protect the technology, we own the technology. So everything our competitors in the medical aesthetic or aesthetic surgical can do, we can do, and above we have a segment which nobody has. Now, do we compete against them in the traditional lasers? Partially. Why? We do have laser and we do have IPL, but we keep it as a complementary technology. What that means? It means that if a doctor wants to buy from us also laser for hair removal, we want to sell it to him and not have him buy it from Candela or from Cynosure or from Cutera. We can offer it as well. So if he's happy with the service, happy with the equipment, happy with the company, there's no reason why we will not be one-stop shop for him. Okay? Now, our portfolio is the widest portfolio in the industry. On laser, we don't have very high protection. On IPL as well, because these are 40 years old, we know how to do it better. We're coming from this industry. But on the surgical, minimal invasive, ablative, Morpheus, fractional RF, we are the leaders.
Okay, got it. And, we did I worked with one of our other analysts to do a panel discussion with a dermatologist, and it was mainly focused on the injectables and things like that. But I did ask some questions on the device side. He uses a lot of lasers and things like that. One company, when I asked about InMode, one company he mentioned, with regard to like the body type, face type products was this company Thermi. So I'm not real familiar with it, but I mean, do you view them as a competitor to those products?
Yes.
Or?
Tell me, it's a company that started in the United States. It's a monopolar RF, not bipolar RF.
Okay.
They develop a product for, I don't want to say similar to Apex, but quite similar. And then the company was sold to a Spanish company in Spain, and they tried to run it mainly in Europe. Recently, I don't know who bought it from the Spanish company, but it changed hand again.
Okay.
I know founders of the company, I know who that. I don't think we see them quite often in the US. Okay,
got it. All right, and then the two other questions I get from investors a lot is really just around the R&D spending. I mean, it's 2.2% of sales last year, relatively low by medtech standards. I know I've asked you this question before, but I thought I would ask again. I mean, I think your view is it's just really have highly productive R&D teams, but I don't know if you can give me any thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I don't think R&D should be measured by percentage of revenue. I think R&D should be measured by the productivity of the R&D. We're coming with almost 2 platforms and 2 indications every year, and we're spending less than the average. I agree with you. Cutera, for example, they spend $7-8 million per quarter, and they develop one product every 2 years. So, I mean, the fact that they are spending more money on R&D doesn't mean that they are developing more equipment or more solutions than we do. And therefore, I believe we have a very good engineering team. Our technology is protected. We have the best knowledge base for bipolar RF for medical aesthetic and aesthetic surgical in the world. We're using this technology on different applications and different platforms. And $2.2 million or $2.3 million per quarter, that's the numbers that we need. We have electronic, mechanical, software, clinical, system engineering. We do all in-house. We don't buy R&D from nobody. Everything is in-house, and we do it right.
Okay. All right. And then the other question would just be that I've heard is just around the gross margins. I mean, mid-80s, that's amazingly high. And, maybe you could just comment. I think in the past you've talked about your pricing being better because of your differentiated technologies. Just any help you can give there. And, how sustainable do you think that north of 80% gross margin is? I mean, is there a risk that we see competitors come in and try to undercut you on pricing somehow?
Well, I believe the gross margin determined first by the price of the equipment. The fact that we have high gross margin is because we have equipment which we can charge higher prices because of the uniqueness of the technology, proprietary technology. I'll give you an example. The best laser today is $70,000. We're selling equipment for $130,000. So you have few percentage extra on the gross margin there. Second, I believe I said it before. For us, 80% and above, 85% gross margin is a must. It's not nice to have. So from the drawing board, when we develop the system, we develop it to be 85% gross margin. We develop the engineering, the manufacturing, the component selection, the life cycle, the service, the logistic, and everything is designed in order to enable us to exercise 85%. I would say 83 to 86% gross margin, depend on the quarter and depend on the supply chain. Of course, we cannot control the supply chain. And whenever you have a situation like now, you are losing 1 or 1.5%, but that's something that, behind our control. But that will continue. The high gross margin will continue. It's a must for us.
Okay, got it. I did have one question that was emailed to me just about I know you announced the share repurchase. So this person wanted to know, how many shares you've repurchased so far. I don't know if you're willing to answer that right now, but I thought I would try.
How much we purchased, Yair?
We will provide this information as part of the earnings call. During the earnings call.
All right. And then InMode filed an ITC complaint against Iluta and Cutera in early 2021. My understanding is these ITC things typically take about 18 months or something. Can you just...
Yeah, but that was settled already.
Oh, it was? Okay, apologize.
That was settled. They paid us money. And in addition to that, they are limited now not to go to the subdermal fat and not to do with fractional, only microneedling. Now, the difference between microneedling and fractional RF is the fact that in our technology, which is a patent, you have the return electrode on the skin. All the other microneedling who can go below the dermis or can go to the dermis do not have return electrode. So the energy is flowing between the pins and do not warm and do not create any effect all the way up to the epidermis. This they agree to do. They are taking all this product out of the US and they pay us money.
Okay. All right. Well, we're almost out of time. So I just want to ask one more question about the pipeline, kind of a longer term pipeline. So I seem to remember you've talked about things like erectile dysfunction, ENT, et cetera. So just from a high level, can you talk about the types of specialties?
I think we have two more, I would say, in addition to the Envision, we have two more platforms that we intend to bring to the market in 2023 and 2024. One is for the ENT, for sleep apnea and snoring, septum correction, turbinate contraction. We're doing some preliminary study. We have a preliminary prototype right now under IRB in Israel. On the erection dysfunction, we are going to combine two energies, the shockwave and bipolar RF. We have a prototype. We have not started to do any clinical study.
Okay, got it. All right, I think we're going to have to wrap up. We're almost out of time, but thank you for coming to our conference. Hope you had some good meetings, and I guess we'll catch up on the first quarter earnings call.
Thank you for inviting